Welcome to this episode of the AEC Engineering and Technology Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping engineering professionals find technology that fits their needs. I am your host, Nick Heim, and in this episode, I'll be speaking with Stephen Brahney, president of FixAsphalt, about his journey in the asphalt, concrete, and pavement maintenance industry, and how technology is revolutionizing parking lot assessments. With that, let's jump into today's episode. Now it's time for our conversation of the week with Steve Brahney. Steve, welcome to the show. So good to have you on.
Thank you.
So Steve, we've got a really nice conversation, I think, laid out today. And I just wanted to start by asking about your career journey and how did it lead you to your current role at FixAsphalt?
So I've been around the pavement maintenance industry since I was about 13 years old. So I started out doing parking lot striping. We had a family friend that was involved in the business. So instead of, doing what most kids might, doing like mowing lawns and things like that, just something about striping interested me. And then short time after that, I saw a company silcoing a parking lot when I was probably about 14 years old and decided again that instead of mowing lawns that summer, I could start sealing driveways. So did that all the way through high school and including through college. I went to, ran my business part-time in the summer. Part-time during the school year. Used to get all my classes scheduled down to like 2 to 3 days a week. So I was able to actually work 3 to 4 days a week during the school year. I did that. I finished in college in December of 99. I went and worked, I had a regular job for about 18 months and then just decided that it was not for me. And then in April of 2001, I just started in business. And that's what I've been doing since 2001, working for myself.
So very entrepreneurial, right? Got started at a young age, partially, some from the family, have just been around the industry for, I guess, 25, 30 plus years at this point, right? So you've been in the game for a while, and kind of leads me to my next question, right? So as you've kind of gone through the years, right, seeing how the industry has developed, how has technology played a role in your daily operations, especially when it comes to assessing parking lots? And in your mind, like, how has that changed from when you got started as a teenager to today?
So technology was something, obviously I came from that generation, that Commodore 64 generation. So I'd been around computers since I was in probably like 4th or 5th grade. So technology to me was always something I used. When I was in high school, I started my business. I bought the first version of QuickBooks. Like everybody else was doing accounting, journal entries and everything on paper. I started using QuickBooks. Then to do my proposals, there was a company up in Massachusetts called Nebs where you could buy these pre-printed proposals, feed them into your computer, and then you had this setup in there and you could be able to do your proposals. So from the beginning, I always embraced technology. So when I was in high school and in college and the companies I was competing against, some of these companies were second generation companies. They've been in business 20, 30 years, 40 years. The grandfather owned the company. They were still doing proposals by hand. Pre-printed forms, writing everything on there. So right away, even if I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I immediately was able to differentiate myself from everybody else because of the fact that I could use technology. I used to take pictures of parking lots. You had Polaroid cameras back then. So I would you'd go to present a proposal to somebody, take a picture of the parking lot with a Polaroid, and I'd go to present the proposal in person, and then I'd lay out all the pictures and do it that way. So from the very beginning, when I went back into business for myself after I worked, I started, after I had a job in another company, I started using Palm Pilots to do estimates with. They had like an Excel spreadsheet in the Palm Pilots. So from the very beginning, it's something I've always embraced, whether it's for scheduling, estimating, job costing, accounting, always embrace technology.
And to me, it sounds like a mindset, Steve, right? Because at the time when you were first getting started out, right, you're getting your start in the industry, you're going up against competitors with significantly more experience and you would think more resources, right? But you were able to use that technologically minded mindset to actually, it sounds like to me, deliver a better client experience.
Yes. Yeah. With that, it was an immediate differentiator between me and everybody else. And even the property managers with the joke about, they're like, you're the only proposal that we ever get. They're like, in all of our trades, roofing, whatever it is, you're the only one that like delivers a proposal that is, multiple pages, explains everything. Like I had it all in a Word format. So I'd encounter different things in a parking lot. There's a whole explanation page that went on with something we did include. I had an entire page of disclaimers. I mean, I used to joke, like I said, it took me like 20 years before I actually got sued by a client for something because of the fact that we were so thorough on telling them what to expect and what not to expect on the job. The one that actually sued us wound up losing because of the fact that I showed, listen, they signed off on this. They knew the problem was going to happen and they just, elected not to take our advice. But, we were always, very, very thorough on that, making sure everything was explained to make sure the customer on we were very transparent about everything.
Absolutely. And then kind of moving forward, like to today, right? So how do you think technology enhances the efficiency and accuracy of parking lot assessments?
If you're not using technology, you're not even in the game. I mean, a company that just sends a proposal with a couple pictures, another contractor, one of your competitors that figures out how to do it different is just going to knock you right out of that spot because the customers now are more accustomed to technology. It's technology, even maybe 10, 15 years ago was kind of something that some companies embraced, some didn't. The customers were like, well, this guy's great. This guy, sends me an email with the price and blah, blah, blah. It's not negotiable any longer. They're not going to, there's just too much out there that a contractor can use to bridge that gap between what's out there, what the property manager is seeing, to explain it to them, where if you're not embracing that, you're just one step away from another contractor coming in, showing them how they do it, and then you're going to get knocked out of that top spot.
Absolutely. And let's talk specifics. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts and opinions, specifically on data analytics and machine learning, right? So how do you guys use those tools and those technologies to optimize parking lot assessments?
So the thing is it's putting it into a format that the customer can understand. And obviously, Nick, you're an engineer, so this is not a stab at you, but I get customers, because I work with a lot of national accounts. They work with a lot of these national engineering firms, and we get these specs and these assessments that the customer is paying, God only, one customer told me one time they're paying $5,000 to $7,000 a site to have these engineering companies come out and just do the same subsurface evaluation of the parking lot that we're doing for them, for depending on the account type it is, whether it's a tier 1 or tier 2 account, they might be paying nothing for this information. And they're paying $5,000 to $7,000 for this info, and I get it. And it's like this thick. All the customer wants to know is what is wrong, what is the cost to fix it, and how long the parking lot's going to last. They don't need all of these cut sheets for all this different information. And contractors aren't going to read through them either unless you get right to the point, because they've got a million things going on. So they get this bid package and they're like, listen, it's just too much info. It's too much aggravation. So what I try to do is kind of go in the middle of that, kind of be the intermediary, where they don't have to pay an engineering firm to come in, a crazy amount of money to come in there and evaluate these parking lots. And then I can give them a report that's maybe, depending on how big the square footage of the parking lot is, 5 to 20 pages explaining everything, saying, here's what you have right now. This is all the asphalt and concrete assets you have in the parking lot. This is the value of them. This is in today's dollars what it would cost to replace them all. Here's how much life, here's the current condition of it. Here's how much life is left. And here's what you can do to extend that life. And I try to take that information, and I don't want to use the word dumb it down because I don't want to offend anybody. But when you're dealing with a property or facility manager, these people are spread beyond thin. Okay. Some of them I deal with, they're the main facility manager for the entire East Coast. They've got hundreds of properties. It's not just parking lots. They're dealing with, HVAC issues. They're dealing with roofs. They're dealing with permitting outside. There's landscaping, a million other things that are going on. They just want to know what is wrong with the parking lot, Or if there's nothing wrong with the parking lot, how long can we expect the life expectancy if we maintain it? And I just try to take all of that information. I try to put myself in the place of the property facility manager and say, this person literally has no time to deal with it. How do I get from A to B as quick as possible? Tell them the information they need, okay, without rushing it, where they see the value in what we're providing. And it's actually information that they can bring and show to their people that can help, whoever is doing budgeting, whoever the bean counters are, to make sure they've got the proper amount of budgets to do the work properly.
And Steve, you bring up a really great point, and I will say the same thing, right? There are definitely firms out there that prioritize a deliverable for people other than the client or customer, right? And what you've succinctly said, right? What do most clients care about? Time, cost, and access, right? And I also like your point about dumbing it down, because it's really not. It's delivering the pertinent information to the person that needs to hear it in a way that they understand.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you have any specific technologies or software platforms that you think are effective for conducting parking lot assessments?
So right now, we are working on something that I can't really discuss because it's somewhat proprietary, but it's going to use an AI, a machine learning model, and what it will do is be able to take information that we feed in from a drone, and it will be able to pick out the asphalt efficiencies and itemize them and do measurements. So that is something right now that we would just use for ourselves. I don't know if it's something that in the future I would have I might be something I license out or have other contractors use it, but we use HubSpot a lot. HubSpot is it started out mainly as a website hosting service, but they have so many other different things in now for services and things like that. So we can take a customer's information and put it into HubSpot on all of their properties, and they can just go in there and click on it. So they can see the reports, evaluations, videos, whatever it is. Some of our customers have us inspect the parking lots yearly. Some have us do it bi-yearly. Personally, I like bi-yearly because you get it right after the winter and you get it right before the winter to be able to correct anything that happened over the winter and correct anything before the winter happens. So they can go into HubSpot. They get it's pretty much just like, it's not a landing page, but they have almost their own portal in there. And it allows them to go in, they can see all of their properties that we maintain, and they can click on different reports. So this prevents them from having to call and say, hey, so-and-so store number, blah, 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 you went out there 2 years ago and you did evaluation, then you got to go in there and find it and everything like that. It just gives them information as they get updated, the inspections, they can go in there. But there is inspection softwares that are out there that a contractor can use as well to streamline things. We just try to work on it to kind of make it somewhat proprietary so that it's something we can provide that another contractor is not able to. It just gives us more, obviously makes us more valuable to the customer.
Absolutely. And Steve, so you've kind of brought up two subsets of AI, right? Computer vision, right? See a defect, right? A computer can identify based on some training data, and then machine learning, right? Feeding the AI data and allowing it to learn and make decisions based on what you've given it. So to the audience, right, here's a real world application, right? Contractor like Steve is using, and it sounds like they're developing something proprietary in-house. So Steve, I'm sure more to come on that.
Yes.
And to your comments about HubSpot, do you find how are the usage rates for something that's self-service, right? And I don't really think a lot of firms offer, and how's the client feedback been?
Anybody that's used it says they enjoy it because it gets right to it. The other thing too is it sets up certain triggers. So I can, as they're viewing files, I can find out who's viewing them and what they're viewing, because we've also had issue. We've had to blacklist customers because they also, what they didn't realize at first is when you forward a file, we get a breadcrumb of that. So when you take a file out of there, so let's just say you're a client and you're on exclusive, you're a tier one client, and you're on exclusive agreement with us, and we're not charging you to do these site evaluations. Well, if you're forwarding them to other contractors, we have a major problem at that point because we're not going out there to be an estimating service. So I had one customer we actually had to blacklist. I mean, we fired him as a customer, but we had to blacklist him out of there because they were going in and forwarding the information to one of my competitors. And I understand they're trying to get competitive pricing on it or whatever it is, get apples to apples. But by forwarding them, it says on there, everything is copyrighted. So by forwarding them this information and giving them access to it, that's a major violation for me. So we wound up getting them out of there. But that is the good thing, because if a customer is going in there and looking, so then you can set a task trigger up. So if they look at it, it sends me an email and says, so-and-so just looked at this property. Then I know, hey, do I contact them a day or two? I notice you just viewed that site evaluation. Do you have a question on that? Is there something going on? Are you trying to get a budget number for that, for something from there? So it helps me keep track of everything as well.
Automation and technology to essentially provide better service.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And Steve, let's talk a little bit more about your clients, right? So you've got a pretty diverse range, right? Quick service restaurants, REITs, and, many in between. How do you tailor your approach to each one's unique needs?
You have to figure out what it is. So the quick service is one vertical we don't really work in. I did when I started. I had every single quick service brand out there as a client at one point for a couple of years. But you have to figure out the client you're working for. So if you're working in shopping centers, you have to understand that client. So they're dealing with CAM charges. So when you go in and do an assessment, you have to talk to the client and figure out what they're looking to do. Okay, so here's certain services that can be covered under CAM. Here's capital expenses. If you go to them and show them, hey, listen, you have all these repairs in the parking lot, or seal coating, which can be covered under CAM, will extend the life of that asphalt. The asphalt's still in a serviceable condition. It's still a 7 to a 10 on the Pacer scale. You can show the client, here is how you extend the life of the asphalt, because when that asphalt asset is at the end of its service life, okay, well, you as the landlord now have to pay to replace it. It's a capital expense. And that's something that I think a lot of REITs, a lot of facility property managers don't really, I don't say don't understand, but I don't think it's something that's emphasized enough. I mean, when I talk to other contractors about that and bringing that to their attention, they're like, I've never even thought about it. It's a great idea. I'm like, well, because you're showing them how to extend it. I mean, if you've got a car and it's a lease, okay, and they're responsible for the maintenance on the vehicle, or you have to pay for the engine if you blow the engine. I mean, you want to make sure that the car is going to last so long, because when you get to the end of your lease, you don't want to blow an engine on it that you have to wind up paying for out of pocket at the end of the lease. So I try to bring that information as much as I can. When you're dealing with shopping center clients, obviously there's a lot to deal with logistics. I mean, just for scheduling and different things like that. Then, you've got other REITs, you've got industrial. So that's big with dealing with, sometimes it's multi-tenant buildings, sometimes it's single tenant buildings. So again, in the lease and some leases, some property owners are kind of, they've got great leases. I mean, they are literally responsible for nothing on that building, which is great. I mean, all the power to them. Whoever's in their legal department, I mean, should definitely get a raise to get the leases written like that. But I'll have customers we have that own industrial properties, and they'll say, listen, we want you to go deal with the tenant directly. They have to pay for the parking lot. I'll say, well, the parking lot's beyond seal coating. Like, I can't go sell them a seal coating jet. Like, no, it needs to be paved. They're paying for it. All right, I'll go and deal with it. So it just depends on the vertical that you're dealing with, and then trying to figure out how to bring the most value to that client for what the information they seek from those properties.
And Steve, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, what does CAM stand for?
Common area maintenance. So you have, if you're in a shopping center, an office building, industrial park, they have CAM. So what happens is, so let's say your lease is $7 a square foot. There's a CAM charge per square foot on that as well, which is usually a couple bucks depending on the property. And that covers the landscaping, the snow removal, parking lot lighting, parking lot sweeping, and any type of maintenance. But a lot of times, what I try to bring to the property managers, I go and assess a parking lot. Say we assess one, and there's an area that has to be done. Say you have a capital expense out there where the landlord has to mill and pave. So they'll say, go to this parcel in front of Best Buy. It's destroyed. We've already been hit with 2 lawsuits for trip and falls. It's got to be milled and paved. But then I'll go to another section of the parking lot and I'll say, well, this was paved 2 or 3 years ago. It's still in good condition, but you've got cracks coming through. You're not crack sealing. You should crack seal it because it can go to CAM. Let the tenants pay for it, instead of you letting this parking lot now in front of, ShopRite now look like the parking lot in front of Best Buy in 5 years from now because you're not maintaining it. So if you can, as a contractor, if you can go and talk to your clients and show them how you can help them maximize that CAM spend, not spend more, but maximize it to where they can protect the asphalt, then you'll definitely be more valuable than any other customer, any other contractor that is calling them just saying, hey, put me on your bid list, I want to do your work. There are guys like they're nonstop and they're a dime a dozen. They've got those phone calls all day. If you can bring them something of value, then all of a sudden you're no longer just one of those guys that's annoying them. You're now a contractor that they look to as counsel, somebody that will give them, honest advice that brings great information to them.
And Steve, continuing on the trend of technology, right? So you've described how you have a pretty unique approach to client service, right? Providing value to your clients as a partner and less of just, right, like just any bidder. Can you describe any experiences where technology integration significantly improved the outcomes of a parking lot assessment?
Yep. I mean, pretty much anything we look at, if the customer is willing to invest the time to look at the information and follow your advice, I think anytime we have laid a plan out in front of a customer, it's paid off because we've shown them how they can actually extend the life. Not everybody listens to it. I mean, there are some customers that just, for whatever reason, we'll pave a parking lot and we'll send them a maintenance plan. They don't take us up on the maintenance plan. We'll send them an offer to come in to inspections twice a year. They don't follow us up on inspections. Then they call us in 10 years and they're like, parking lot's going to be milled and paved. Yeah, well, would have lasted at 20 to 25 if you kind of just let us help you. So if a customer honestly wants the help, then I'd say anytime we've brought it to them, and it's been a lot of times when I bring the information to the customers, what's actually crazy is like when they see it and they actually understand what you're trying to explain to them, it's like a light bulb goes on because nobody's brought this information to them before. They've never had this information in front of them where it's actionable items where they say, here's a spreadsheet, here's what you need to do every year, here's the associated cost per square foot. And it's in a very easy format that they can understand. They don't get that. Like a contractor comes in and paves the parking lot. If they don't seal coat, you'll probably never hear from them again. If they do seal coat, maybe they'll call them in a year or two and say, hey, listen, I think it's time to seal coat, or, maybe they don't. So I try to make it so that, they're, by looking at this information, taking action on it, something that's going to be a great value to them.
And so and also so that it's actually digestible, right? Because on one hand, like you mentioned earlier, right, you've got reports that some property managers will get the VISTIC, right? They may not have the time or expertise to digest. And then in other instances, I'm assuming, right, it's like you said, a mill and pave job, no maintenance plan, and then they're calling you, not necessarily because you were the one who did it,
yep,
right? But they're calling you because whoever did the mill and pave job to start with didn't teach them how to maintain their asset.
Yeah, with me, it's education's big. Like I've always said, an educated client is the absolute best buyer you can deal with, because when you get them out of that commodity mindset of everything is the same, when it's really not. I mean, in any industry, whether it's paving, seal coating, concrete, whatever it is, nothing, although it looks like the same, it's really not, because there's different products, there's different materials, there's different prep work you can do, there's different installation methods, all which make it entirely different and can affect the life expectancy of whatever product or whatever service you're buying. But the contractors don't look at it that way. They just go in and they're just price driven and they're trying to just get that number right where it's below the other guys so they can get the work, but they're delivering no value. And then in the end, the customer and the ones that are price driven, they're the ones that are screwing themselves, because when the contractor understands that that's the way you buy, okay, that's what they're aiming for. So they're going to go and see that there's other things wrong with the parking lot, but they're not going to point that out because they understand that's going to put their number here. They're trying to get down here, but they understand once they put that in there, that's where their number is. So I approach it differently. Like if it's a price sensitive account, we just don't pursue it. I just, there's so much work out there and there's so much of a demand for the service I provide. I don't need to chase those types of jobs. I've got customers chasing me. I don't need to chase them. So if I get a customer and I see something wrong, even if I know it's going to put me out of the price, I'm going to explain it to them, because If they don't want to go that way and it's too expensive or whatever, it is what it is. But I've done my job by explaining to them, this is what has to be done. I mean, I had a customer on Friday that we got work from, and the guy, and I took a chance on him. And he's told me, he goes, listen, we don't always buy on the lower price, but sometimes we do. But I saw the opportunity. So I put the number in there on the job. He called me back and he said, we're going to award the work to you. I said, great. I said, how much more expensive was I than the other two companies? He goes, well, how do you know you're? I said, I know I was more expensive because I know the other two companies put numbers on it. And both of those guys are head to head. I'm usually 20% more expensive. He goes, yeah, you were more expensive. I said, okay. I said, why did you go with us? He goes, well, I got your assessment report of the parking lot, and you point out like 9 things they didn't point out. I said, okay. And you've got 50 properties, right? He goes, yeah. I said, how many of those other properties have these two other companies looked at that you think they've left stuff off on? He goes, probably every single one. Oh, there you go, right there.
Steve, a great example, right? For one, right, you're almost filtering down to your ideal client, and it sounds like you found one. And then 2, providing real service and value, getting out of the low bid commodity environment. And I think this is a lesson that everyone can learn something from, because if a client is driven one way or another, right? If they're low bid driven or if they're value driven, you can then at least make the decision that benefits you and your firm the best.
Yep, absolutely.
So Steve, looking ahead, what emerging technologies do you foresee having a significant impact on the future of parking lot assessments? And then what's your reasoning behind that?
So I think there's drone companies now that can literally go out, they can use LiDAR to find out if there's water under a roofing membrane. They can find out if there's water under a parking lot, which is humongous to be able to do. I see things to a point where a property manager will, with companies like Drone Deploy, they're out there that have all these independent drone operators that can fly for them. I think you'll have a situation where there'll probably be a company or multiple companies that come out that will just provide parking lot assessment under immediate need. So, or, within 72 hours. So you'll have a platform where drones can be flown on demand under, one of these third-party companies that has all these drone operators in their network, and the property manager will go and say, hey, I need a complete parking lot assessment, or it's a REIT, or it's a fund that's going out there to buy a shopping center. So we're looking at this deal. We need somebody to come out there and tell us what we're looking at so we can get money back on the back end of the deal for the parking lot. The parking lot's in bad condition. You could hire a company that could come in, they could fly a drone over it, put all that information into a system, and then that company will be able to spit out whether it's a budget plan or complete assessment, however it works, sell it to an end user at some point. I mean, the technology, I don't ever see it rolling backwards. I mean, if anything, it's going to go forward. And again, the contractors that aren't embracing that are, you're going to be left in the dust.
And Steve, you brought up another great point that I don't know that we've mentioned thus far on the customer service end, right? Is speed. Right. Yeah. And we're not talking about speed where something's rushed and done incorrectly. We're talking about speed and time to delivery, right? You had mentioned a REIT trying to get a deal done and needing specific information about an asset. And the faster you can deliver that, right, assuming that it's all done to a certain standard of quality, right? That's another great way to use technology to win business. So I'm glad you mentioned that example.
Yeah, it's speed to, what I call, at least with estimating, for a project, it's like speed to the lead. And now we could turn around a parking lot seal coating proposal, or repair proposal, striping proposal, small repair for asphalt or concrete. I mean, we could turn it over in under an hour from the time the lead comes in till it goes out. It's the Amazonification of business. Everybody wants everything yesterday. When you order something off Amazon at 5 o'clock in the morning, you got an Amazon warehouse within 25 miles of your house. It's there when you get home at 5 o'clock. I mean, I always tell people a story about a drone. I mean, when I lived in South Jersey, we had 3 Amazon warehouses right around where I lived, and I ordered a brand new DJI Phantom, the original Phantom 2 drone. And I ordered it like 5 o'clock in the morning, and they said, you're a Prime member. Would you like this today before 5 without any additional cost? I'm like, yeah. I just clicked. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I come home from work, and it's sitting on my front porch. So that's the way it is. Everybody wants everything, everybody wants everything yesterday. And if you can, if you, as a contractor, you can figure out how to provide that service, then you're going to be more valuable than every other contractor. And again, it's not for every service. If you've got an assessment that has to be done, a paving job, you still have to put eyes on it. But I've got people, if I get a prospect that calls, they need a paving. So let's just say it's a situation where a guy is looking at a commercial property he wants to buy. He says, okay, listen, parking lot's in bad shape. I said, you've got a couple pictures of it? Great. Sends me pictures, text, email, whatever. I can sit at my desk. Got 3 monitors. I can sit at my desk. I can go into a program like Nearmap, and I can pull multiple shots of that property that from when it was flown over various times, look at the condition of the asphalt all the way back to, depending on what area Nearmap was in. Sometimes in some areas we work at is back to 2015. I can see the condition of the asphalt. And I can look at it and tell them, okay, do a quick measurement. Here, if this is just a simple overlay, this is what you're looking at. If it's a 2-inch mill and pave, this is what you're looking at. But I could see from this angle, the way the sun is after it rained, I can see all the alligator cracking. So I'm going to say in this parking lot, you've got 25,000 square feet of mill repairs that have to be done before you can pave. And here's the number for that. You call another company, dude, and they're like, well, we can get out there in 2 weeks from now. The customer's not waiting 2 weeks. They need that information today. Like nobody's going to wait any longer. So if you can't figure out how to deliver that information faster, you better hope that you don't have a competitor that I'm friends with somewhere else in the country and you're in their market, because I will be helping them and they're going to be taking your work away from you.
Right. And Steve is coming to disrupt the industry for the benefit of the customer. And right.
Yes.
And the instances where, let's say, a Nearmap or an Eagle View, right, maybe doesn't provide enough detail, right? There's always remote collaboration. There's other instances of tools that can get that information quickly, right?
Yep.
Still, roughly, it's going to take a little longer because you got to get on site, but we're not talking like, see you in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, there's crowdsourcing out there where you could send companies to take pictures and things like that. You could have somebody can do FaceTime in there. I mean, with today's technology, if you cannot turn a simple proposal, if you cannot turn that over the same day or at least within 48 hours, you better figure out how to, because there is, I've got, like I said, out of the 5,000 followers I have on LinkedIn, I've got a tremendous amount of contractors that follow me. And they connect to me on Facebook. I mean, they send me, oh, hey, so how can I fix this? How can I do it? And I feed them information all the time. So it's not just in the New Jersey market. If you're around here, I talk to contractors all over the United States of America and Canada. So as these other contractors across the country are starting to learn different methods to improve the experience for the customer, if you're one of these companies that competes against them, they're gonna start taking your clients away from you.
Yep. And if you are, right, sounds like you can reach out to Steve, right, for some advice, maybe see where he's thinking the industry is going to go. And Steve, if the audience does want to reach out to you about any of the topics we talked about today, additional questions, et cetera, what is the best way to connect with you?
Just email. Just connect to me on LinkedIn or Facebook, whichever one. And then obviously you call the office too. It's 1-877 FixAsphalt. We're the website, fixasphalt.com. If you go on my bio page on there, you can click. It's got like all direct connects to my link tree and everything in there. So,
absolutely, Steve. Wanted to thank you again for taking the time today. This has been great, and I think the audience is going to get a lot out of the topics we discussed today. So, thank you again for your time.
Anytime.
Absolutely. All right, Steve. Till next time.
Thank you.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aectechpodcast.com. There, you will find a summary of key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering and technology endeavors. Thank you.